Welcome to Sticks and Picks. I'm Jeff Antoon, your moderator. On my left, I have Neil Chesser, Jamal Mitchell, and on my right, I have Marcus Jones. We're here to talk about the top 5 NFL running backs of all time. Neil, why don't you lead us off with your number 5?
Okay, so this week with my number 5, I'm rolling with the juice, O.J. Simpson. So put him on there, just purposely, number 1. I mean, 1-time NFL MVP, 5-time Pro Bowl, 5-time All-Pro, 4-time league leader in rushing yards, and then twice as league leader as far as touchdowns are concerned. Rushed for about 11,236 yards and 61 career touchdowns. That's a combination of both rushing and receiving. But yeah, I put him on number 5 just because of those numbers and because of the fact, definitely played with the subpar team, but still definitely dominated his career, especially only playing 14 games this season as well. So.
All right, you got O.J. Simpson at number 5.
Yes.
Jamal?
I got the big 6'3", big back,
Rams.
Sealy, Texas native, Eric Dickerson. SMU also.
I got him too. Number 5.
The reason being, before him, big backs wasn't considered. He's 6'3", and he can run like a gazelle.
And he wore glasses.
And he wore glasses. And he was with a Jerry curl, might I add. Juice was flying. That's why the defenders couldn't catch him. He was slippery. But no, he was a great back, 6-time Pro Bowler, NFL Offensive Player of the Year in 1986. He had 1,808 rushing yards in his rookie season.
That's a record.
And he was just an offensive juggernaut, and I have him at my number 5 because of those things.
I also have Eric Dickerson as my number 5, and he has the record, I don't know if you said this, 2,105 rushing yards in one season, still has not been broken. I don't have a year on that. Can we get our fact checker to check the year on that? But the 1980s all-decade team, I think to me, when you make an all-decade team, I think that is above and beyond what the journalists, whatever the coaches say. I think that is one of the biggest things that you can do is make an all-decade team. You're the best running back in those 10 years, and this was obviously the 80s. And well, he was at the end of his career in the 90s. But Dickerson's my number 5.
My number 5 would be Adrian Peterson, AP. The reason why he's number 14 NFL history rushing leader, he has 12,171 yards today, only second to Frank Gore with being an active running back. He had 99 rushing. He has 99 TDs current. Adrian Peterson, my number 5.
All right. Anybody have any complaints about their number 5s?
AP's strong arguments across the board.
AP's the only active player, I think, on all of our top 5s. So that's something to think about as well.
I believe that's a very, very good pick at number 5.
Adrian Peterson also, keep in mind, has the most yards gained in a single game with 296 against the San Diego Chargers back in 2007. It's not going to happen again, fellas.
And if you're a fantasy player, you know how many points that equates to. So fantasy's huge in this day and age. But all right, let's go to our number 4s. Jamal's going to kick this one off.
Fellas, I have Mr. Elusive, the Kansas Comet, Mr. Gale Sayers.
Oh, man.
I do. I have Mr. Gale Sayers. And might I add, he came from Wichita, Kansas, where Barry Sanders for him. So I see why Barry Sanders is so great, because he had a great mentor showing him the way. Gale Sayers, at the time that he was playing, and the era, where, now if you get touched, it's a flag.
That's right.
He played in an era where it was raw and uncut, and he was a four-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, and at his position, he was one of the greatest of all times at what he was doing. And I have to put Mr. Gale Sayers at my number 4.
All right, Gale Sayers. I got O.J. Simpson. So that goes back to Neil's number 5, correct? No.
Yeah.
Number 5 on Neil. The juice was just electric when I watched him. Even I grew up in Southern California, so watching him play in college, or not necessarily I was that old, but watching the highlights of that and how electric he made running back University, USC, it was just so impressive to watch him. And again, I'm gonna go back to the all-decade team. He made the 70s all-decade team. He was the NFL 75th anniversary all-time team. Wow. That's pretty impressive to make that list. On top of it, he did win an MVP. He did not have a championship. And so far, let me ask this question to all of us. On your 5s and your 4s, did they win a Super Bowl championship?
No.
Did Gale Sayers win? OJ, we know, didn't win. Did AP win one?
No.
It's interesting to see that. It doesn't necessarily equate the best running backs to Super Bowl rings. So, again, that's something we're talking about. But that's my number 4, O.J. Simpson.
My number 4, I'm going to give it to my boy, Tony Dorsett, TD. Tony Dorsett made me believe that if I got the football, I could run 99 yards, which is what he did for the first time. Let's see. Tony Dorsett, he had 8 1,000-yard seasons. He made me feel, like I said, that if I got the ball, give me the ball, I'll run 99 yards like he did against the Vikings in '83. Tony Dorsett would be my pick for number 4.
Okay. And you're a Austin native, right?
Yes, I am.
So we don't need no bias alert yet. Neil, number 4. You're the last one on the 4s.
So my number 4 is actually going to be Eric Dickerson. 6-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro. I mean, obviously, we've already gone through the majority of his stats with him being the number 5 for both of you two gentlemen over there. But, Hall of Famer as well. And, again, just another running back that really dominated the game with no offensive line. Absolutely none. The Rams were never really good in his heyday. Neither were the Colts. So, he just did good things.
Now, I do want to say one more thing about my pick, O.J. Simpson, which will also help out Neil in his number 5. O.J. Simpson, I have a statistic here that we're going to put up here later on. But the top 12 seasons in NFL rushing history, O.J. Simpson has the most yards per game ever, 143.1. He also has the 6th best at 129.8, and no one on our list seems to be that high to have 2 of them. That's one of the reasons why I put O.J. on my top 5. All right, anybody else have a complaint about it?
Not at all.
No, that's pretty good.
Okay, so let's go. I'm going to kick off our number 3. I can't intro like Jamal, but I'm going to say he was considered sweetness. So
yes,
he played
yes.
13 seasons. This is Walter Payton, the late, great Walter Payton.
Yes.
Very sad his death, but he's a 9-time Pro Bowler, 5-time All-Pro, the only Super Bowl champ on my list, and a 1-time MVP. I mean, I can go down his list. NFL Offensive Player of the Year, NFL rushing yards leader in 1977. That was his year he won the MVP. Here's even the bigger one. The 70s all-decade team and the 80s all-decade team.
Yeah.
And he's on the 75th anniversary all-time team. So to me, Sweetness was one of the greatest. I can go through his records, but I'm sure someone else on our list is going to have Walter Payton up there.
I do. Walter Payton, 16,726 rushing yards. I agree. Walter Payton would definitely be in my top 5 and anyone's top 5 if they've ever watched a game of football.
Now, we talked about consecutive rushing touchdowns earlier on.
Yes.
He has leading the rusher. So most consecutive season leading the league in rushing attempts was Walter Payton. He's tied with Steve Van Buren, who's pretty much one of those one-hit wonder guys. But again, that's a pretty impressive record to have. That's just rushing attempts. Neil, what do you got for your number 3?
Number 3, I'm going to go with Barry Sanders, the next Mr. Elusive after Gale Sayers there.
That's killing you, isn't it?
Yeah, it's going to happen. But hey, we all have our arguments for who we have as number 1 on our list. But hey, it is what it is. Barry Sanders, I'll always highlight reel every time he was on the field for me. Growing up as a kid, he was one of those ones. I think there was there's the one where he was that against the Buccaneers, I think it was, when he had everybody running in circles and everything. He's probably just one of the greatest highlight reels ever. But yeah, he was just great. Lit up the field. Just one of those guys that got it done with no support at all whatsoever. He made his yardage happen. Every time on his own, basically. But yeah, just amazing. NFL MVP, 10-time Pro Bowler, 4-time league leader in rushing yards, 1-time in TDs. Ended his career with 15,269 yards, third on the all-time list. So yeah, just all the way around Hall of Famer. He should be on everybody's top 5, honestly.
And that's your number 3.
That's my number 3.
All right. Jamal, what do you got?
I have, when you taste a drink with a lot of sugar in it, I have that guy.
OJ.
Coke?
No.
Pepsi?
No, maybe some sweet tea. No, I have Mr. Walter Payton, man, a great man. His best year to date was his 1977 year, where he won MVP, he won Man of the Year, rushing yards leader, NFL rushing touchdowns leader that year. So he had a great year in 1997. Also, to add, he had the most yards by a non-receiving player ever. So, and he had 8 career touchdowns, I'm sorry. And he was just a great man. He was on and off the field. He exemplified what greatness was, and I agree with you. Walter Payton is my number 3, man.
Now, if Walter Payton, and I want to compare this to the all-time rushing leader, Emmitt Smith, who hasn't been mentioned yet on our list. Walter Payton had 13 seasons, and Emmitt Smith Emmitt Smith had the most at 15.
Right.
If Walter Payton played 2 more seasons, he would have the all-time rushing record at this point.
But he didn't.
But he didn't, and I think Emmitt would have played until he got it. So I just want to preface that.
Yeah.
For the all-time rushing leader, I think he would have had it.
Yeah.
But they take a beating at running back, and obviously they're what's the average career that we have?
Average career for a running back is 2.57 seasons.
Wow.
So
Wow,
with that being said, I think Emmitt Smith and Walter Payton, and as well as Barry Sanders, should be on this list.
Yeah.
On all of our lists.
That's crazy. All right, so everyone has their number 3s done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So Marcus is going to kick off our number 2s.
My number 2 is Barry Sanders, and that's because, like I said earlier, just like Tony Dorsett, every time I would watch him play, I wanted to go outside and play football and play running back because of Barry Sanders, how elusive he was, how quick he was, and being as small as he was, he dominated the game. He was an awesome player.
Does anyone else have Barry Sanders at number 2? I have Barry Sanders number 2. I'm gonna jump ahead of
Number
Neil.
3.
He's your number 3?
Yeah.
Okay, so Barry's number 3. I got Barry at number 2, and I just want to jump off so we could continue this. One-time MVP, played 10 seasons, 89 Offensive Player of the Year, MVP in 97. I know this man was so electric. He was only, what, 5'7"?
Yeah.
The Spud Webb of the NFL, but I mean, he's so center of gravity was so low. When you watch it, 4 guys would hit him, and they would just fall off him, and he would run for a touchdown. It was pretty impressive. In terms of he was the Hall of Fame first team. He also made the all 1990s team again, one of those decade teams.
Yeah.
It's pretty impressive. So let's go. That's my number 2. So we can now go back over to Neil.
Also, to mention also, Barry Sanders' 3rd all-time leading rusher in the NFL with 15,269 yards.
In 10 seasons only, so that's another one you could have tacked on more as well.
Without a line to help.
Yeah, let me say one more thing before we go to you guys on that. I have the statistic you guys are going to see up there. It's rushing yards per game relative to leading rushers. These are the top 10 careers. So Barry Sanders, in this season, it said it outperformed 652% of the leading rushers. Now, there's one more person ahead of him, but he's second all time in terms of top 10 careers. This is your whole career. And one of the reasons I put him at number 2 on my list as well, along with Marcus. So again, just an impressive statistics. This man, I'm sad that he ended his career so short.
Yeah.
9-10 seasons was not the way you want that guy to go. But again, I forgot what happened. Do you guys remember what happened to Barry at the end? Didn't he? Was it contract?
It was
He
was tired.
He didn't want to end his career because he had to. He did it because he wanted to.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So Neil, give us your number 2.
My number 2, which is another gentleman that hasn't been mentioned yet, it was going to be Jim Brown. I mean, just never actually had the opportunity to see him play. Obviously, I mean, I'm definitely not that old, but
50s and 60s.
But I mean, he's one of those running backs that I remember when I first, had a knowledge and understanding of football, was just somebody that was talked about regularly and brought up consistently. But before there were Super Bowls, one-time NFL champion with the Browns. I mean, yes, the Browns were actually a good football team at one point in time. 3-time MVP for the NFL, 9-time Pro Bowler, 8-time All-Pro team. League leader in rushing 8 times, 5-time for touchdowns as well, 12,000 yards in his career, 12,312 to be correct. And honestly, 106 rushing touchdowns. Did his, in an entire career of playing only 14 games a season, I think. So, I mean, really just kind of blew it out of the water. And then obviously, his entire career averaged 5 yards a carry. That's unheard of. That's never going to be topped.
Would it be safe to say that Jim Brown is the Babe Ruth of the NFL at that time?
Ooh, probably.
Yeah, that's a good comparison. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
That's a good
Because
comparison.
Babe Ruth was so good. He was head and shoulders better than everybody.
Yeah.
And it seemed Jim Brown was that same way when he played.
Jim Brown was the running back that did not run around people. He ran through people. And,
All right,
so
all
it was
right.
Impressive.
All right, what do we got? Jamal, number 2.
6'2", Syracuse alumni, Mr. Jim Brown as well. He also won an NFL championship in 1960.
So he has a ring.
He has a ring, 9-time Pro Bowler, 3-time MVP of the league. But what really strikes me about Mr. Jim Brown is that he was also a great actor. He was in He Got Game, Spike Lee joint, and I'm Gonna Get You Sucker.
That's right. That
He
was
the
funny
one that
movie.
had
That was
the
funny.
bunion. The bunion was hurting. But also, he was a great socially active guy off the field, during the height of, social injustices and segregation.
Yep.
He was very vocal, not like today where people say, like, I'm sorry, people giving Kaepernick the man of the year type things, but Jim Brown said it. He stood for it. He didn't retract his statements and go back. And so I have to give him my number 2 strictly on just the great person he was and what he stood for.
All right, we're back, and we're going to talk about honorable mentions. I'm going to quickly ask you guys just to go up and down the list. Just tell me some people who could replace somebody on your list, or maybe a 6 through 10. But very quick, give us one at a time. Neil, start us off.
One definitely running back that I would say should probably be on my list, but isn't just, for reasons that I won't mention at this point in time, but Emmitt Smith. I mean,
Okay,
obviously.
so Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
Mine would be definitely Marshall Faulk. He's a screen option freak.
Yeah,
So
he
I-
was. It was crazy. So that's your first replacement.
That would be my first replacement.
Okay, mine would be Emmitt Smith as well.
Bo Jackson. Bo Jackson could do anything, and everybody wanted to be like Bo Jackson. And not to mention on Super Tecmo Bowl, if he got the ball,
Yeah.
Done.
He's done.
You could run. You could run backwards. Remember running backwards?
that's it, all the way back.
Yeah,
was
you
great.
can run back and
All right.
forward
200
with him.
yards in one
All right, give us
play.
another person. One more quick one.
Marcus Allen,
Marcus Allen. Yeah.
Yeah.
because he has the same name as I. Marcus Allen.
Bias alert.
Whatever.
Bias alert.
I would throw Marshall
Oh, my
Faulk
God.
on that list as well as Bo Jackson. Again, one of my fan favorites. He was one of the great athletes of all time. I'm sad that his career ended so quick. Give
I
us the
would
second
do
one.
somebody that we haven't mentioned or even considered, Curtis Martin.
Curtis Martin.
He was a
okay.
great back.
Fantasy freak right
Yes,
there.
he was.
Yeah, he was a great back.
Another one for me would be John Riggins. Phenomenal running back.
I saw him in '82 Super Bowl.
Yeah, won a Super Bowl. I mean, he had 104 rushing touchdowns in his career too.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
That was all blue collar back then.
Oh,
man.
yeah,
Just
just
run
hard
him down.
nosed. I mean,
Hold on.
multiple
Where
pictures of that
do
guy
we
running
put-
the ball with blood coming off his face?
Yes.
Different areas. Like, just he was intense. He was
Okay.
intense.
Where do we insert LaDainian Tomlinson?
Don't get me started on LaDainian Tomlinson because the fact that he stayed out in the playoffs is the reason he didn't make any of my list. He had a chance to play in that game, and he looked like Jay Cutler and just didn't want to play. And to me, that is like the opposite of blue collar. That
So
is
he
like,
had the Cutler effect.
yeah, the Cutler effect. I'm
Does he
sorry.
have-
I'm
does he
gonna
have-
I throw these guys out. These are millionaires. They don't care about
Yeah,
us.
Should we start making cigarette memes of him too?
We can, but I'm not good at that stuff. We'll have to ask someone else on that.
So the guy sits out one game,
Yep.
doesn't show up for one game, and he takes him off the list.
Yep. Sorry,
on,
I
man.
apologize.
Come on.
Should I or not? All right, let's get to our number ones. We flipped the coin backstage. Marcus going to kick us off with his number one, and then we're going to go around the horn again. So Marcus got number one. Give us who the top NFL running back is of all time.
Top number one running back of all time is Emmitt Smith. Emmitt Smith, the reason why. 355 yards all time. No one's coming close. Let's see. He had 16 years in the league?
15 years.
15 years in the league.
The longest ever.
Most touchdowns, Emmitt Smith.
Yeah.
Of running backs.
Of running, well, come on, that's what we're talking about.
Okay.
Emmitt Smith is the best running back of all times, hands down. The most rings,
He's got two, right? Or is it
Three.
three.
Okay.
Emmitt Smith. Who else could there be?
Yeah. Neil?
I got to go with Sweetness all the way. I mean, we've talked about him multiple times. He's been on everybody's list, but for me, I put him up there, number one, because we're talking about, longevity of running backs. What, 2.57 seasons?
Yes.
We're looking at that. Played his entire career without a bye week. So he was getting hit every consecutive week and still put down that yardage in his career.
All right, so you got sweetness. Walter Payton, number one.
And 2 games with only 14, or 2 seasons with only 14 games.
Okay.
Excuse me.
This is a bias alert.
Detroit?
Detroit, my hometown, the hometown hero, Barry Sanders.
All right.
5'8", calves about this size, low to the ground. Actually made the Dallas Cowboys look pretty bad, man.
Yes, he did.
When they played.
Yes, he did.
But Barry Sanders was electrifying. I mean, when he got on the field, you knew that the ball was going to him, and he still was elusive enough to get away, to make his moves. His best year to date was 1997. He had the most rushing yards that year. He won the NFL MVP that year. And Barry Sanders I don't think we emphasize on the O-line and how important the O-line is. As you can see with Emmitt's career, but we're not going to go there, he had no line at all, and he was doing all of this in just 10 seasons. If he would have played even more, I believe he would have crushed the rushing yards record.
He could have easily.
Do you think he got 20,000?
He could have hit 20,000.
He could have easily did
Okay,
that.
so now
Think about it.
Marcus can
he
get
had
mad.
the same 15 years as Emmitt Smith.
Right.
Because
so-
after
was
10
average.
years,
Tell him that.
Didn't
He did.
He
He
didn't.
didn't.
Yeah, he didn't.
But if
It's
he
a big
did,
if.
if he
It's a
did,
big
you think
if.
he would have got 20,000?
but
It's a
look,
great possibility.
Okay.
And I do agree because the guy was electrifying. No one could keep up with him. I mean, he made people look like fools out there. He did the crossover on the football.
yes, he
Yeah,
did.
he was
yes, he
crossover.
did.
Yeah, he was Allen Iverson before.
Yeah.
Allen
He's
breaking
Iverson.
ankles?
Yeah, he's breaking
He said
ankles.
breaking ankles.
Breaking ankles on the football
I
field.
have one thing to add because this is a bias alert, so I should have more time to talk about him.
Yeah.
But Barry Sanders in each of his seasons rushed over 1,000 yards.
Yes, averaged
each-
1,500 yards a season if you want to break it down for his career.
Each season he had over 1,000 yards. A lot of the backs have not done that.
Yeah, Emmitt Smith only had 1 season without 1,000 yards rushing, and that was his rookie year.
So, I mean, I have to put him number one, being that the O-line sucked in Detroit. Barry, you can come back now. We need
He
you.
probably could. That's the
You
crazy
know,
part.
and
Well, he's on those
but-
Heisman commercials now.
Yeah.
yeah, I seen him on that Heisman
The
commercial.
Nissan Heisman commercial.
But yeah, that's my number one.
All right. My number one is old schooler, and I think is the Babe Ruth of NFL football, Jim Brown.
Yeah.
9 seasons, 3 MVPs. That's 33% of the time he was the best player. Now, 9 is short. Just like Barry Sanders had 9 or 10 years, he wasn't the Emmitt type of player, but this was a hard-nosed, blue-collar
Yes.
running back that when you look at these highlights,
Yeah.
he was the Bo Jackson who ran people over. They just fell off him. If they didn't tackle him, if they didn't bring it,
Yeah.
he brought the thunder to them.
Yes.
Besides his acting career, what did we miss? What famous?
Dirty Dozen.
Dirty Dozen.
Yeah,
we got to
we
give
missed
credit to
the Dirty Dozen, yeah.
But he is an NFL champ. He's got 1 ring now. We know Emmitt, your number 1, has 3.
Yes.
So does that give enough power for him? Because we'll get into the discussion about Emmitt in a little bit. But in terms of it, I want to go back to the statistics that I keep bringing up. The top 14 seasons of running backs, Jim Brown has 2 of the top 14. Actually, if you look at it, it's 2, and then he has 4 of the top 6. So to me, this is one of the reasons, because sabermetrics people would bring in any statistics and talk to us. He's 241% 1 year yards to the average median, and then another 240%. I mean, then you have Walter Payton, and we didn't even mention Earl Campbell.
No, we didn't.
On this list. And then Spec Sanders comes up again from 1947. But again, you're going to be able to see this list as we're talking about it. Top 10 careers, Jim Brown, 865% outperformed other leading rushers. So that is how much impact this man had on the game. Yeah. And I know, and I'm not going to say I disagree with your 2 picks at number 1. Because I think Walter Payton, I think Barry Sanders could easily be the number 1. But I want to contest the man sitting to my right, your left, Emmitt Smith being number 1. We need to talk about this, guys.
Yeah,
because here's what I want to. Can I say this really quick?
I would love
he had
to.
Troy Aikman and Michael Irvin at receiver. He had a great team, and that made it easier for him to rush.
Yeah.
Everyone else we mentioned had no one else on their list.
It wasn't his fault.
Oh.
You can't keep saying that. That can't be your only reason why.
Well,
It didn't happen.
The numbers show
Numbers, okay? We love numbers.
164 touchdowns.
And that's rushing touchdowns. That's not even receiving touchdowns. That's rushing
only.
touchdowns, period.
The closest to him, active players, would be Adrian Peterson at 99. Emmitt Smith, no one's going to get even close to that. So, Emmitt Smith, to me, that's reason enough.
But that's
to
also,
number one.
but isn't that also for us to say, like, Bill Russell had 11 titles?
Right.
And it was the machine that he was a part of that made him that good? Single-handedly, Barry Sanders had no offensive line, but still put up the numbers he put up.
18,355 yards over his season, over his career. He's number one, man.
Okay. Jamal, I know you have something to say about this.
Emmitt Smith. I don't like the Cowboys.
Okay.
I'll say that.
So,
sorry, I don't
bias alert over his head right there.
Again, I've been on bias alert a lot today. I don't like the Cowboys. So Emmitt Smith to me was like, how can I say, like a recipient of a great gift. You know, he had an offensive line. So if I park the Red Sea, yeah, I'm gonna be able to walk through the thing. And he walked through because of that O-line, and then because of the distraction that Michael Irvin, as he stated, caused with the deep ball. So, I mean, he had an easy job. It wasn't that he had to be elusive. He had to break too many tackles. All he had to do was go through the hole. So,
what was his fullback that he had?
Daryl Johnston.
But now,
One of the greatest of all time. Open up holes easy for him. So he had the machine that made him that good.
Yeah.
okay, now they're saying the same thing about Dallas's current line, that they're the best in the league. And as you can see,
Not right now.
Well, they're saying that
Not right
Dallas
now.
has.
Last year, yeah.
Well,
Tyron Smith's
Ezekiel
right now, so.
Elliott
Yeah,
is
that's
doing an
the-
awesome
he's
job this year. When they put Alfred Morris or the other guy,
McFadden.
McFadden, in there, they're not doing nearly as good. So it takes the eye of a man, an individual person, to be able to read those holes. Not everyone can get behind a good line and perform the way Emmitt Smith did. He had to see it. He had to have the vision and the quickness. Emmitt Smith is number one. Man.
Okay, so let me
The
ask.
line has
He was a
nothing-
Let me
north
put
and
it up
south
there.
runner. He was a
If
north
I
and
put
south.
Sweetness
North and south.
in Emmitt Smith's career, does Sweetness have more yards, more touchdowns?
Yeah,
more
Definitely.
I'd say yes.
Okay,
I'd
so
say yes.
so if I put Jim Brown with that
Oh,
type
yeah,
of,
he was shattering.
so then that doesn't that say to you it was the machine itself, and these guys would have as many yards?
Let me
Still have
ask
the
you
vision.
this.
They still have the vision.
Let me ask you
have to
this.
have the vision. It doesn't matter how, you still have to have the vision to see the hole and read the hole and see which way they're pushing. Emmitt Smith,
I agree with that.
he had to do his job.
Okay,
Okay, let's put Emmitt Smith in Jim Brown's situation.
nah.
Let's put Emmitt Smith in Barry Sanders' situation.
Okay. Barry Sanders' situation, I feel like he would still perform as good as he did.
Not 18,000.
No.
Maybe 12, maybe 13.
He wouldn't have gotten 15,000 yards. And
so
I'm a
Barry
Cowboys fan, and
Sanders-
I gotta say that I don't
So
think he
what
would
you
have done the
guys are
same
saying?
damage.
So what you guys are saying is that Barry Sanders is everyone's all-time favorite.
No.
He's
Or should
mine.
be the number one.
He's
on
my
the
number
Cowboys
one.
list.
He's
You
number
know
2
that.
for you, right? Or
number
Sanders 3.
Three.
So
He's
for
number
I
two.
could put Barry at the top. I can interchange Jim Brown because he's my number 2. You know what? But after more thought on this, I could put Emmitt Smith. He would be my number 6, even my
Yeah,
number
that's what
5.
would
And I
be-
know
that
that
would be
kills
my
you.
number 6.
But
That
that's
would
the
be my
reason
number
is that
6.
he had
Definitely.
one of the best receivers and a quarterback that won 3 rings. Now again, that's saying why isn't Troy Aikman in the top quarterbacks of all time? He's got 3 rings.
He was just a game manager,
but he didn't
just
light up the
managed
stat
game.
sheet like
No.
Emmitt Smith did.
He was just a game manager.
Okay. I'm going to shut up. Anybody else have anything to say about Emmitt Smith at number 1?
His Cardinals career was short-lived and wasn't it great, Marcus?
It wasn't that great,
Oh, okay. Just checking.
but he was at the end of his long career. So
Yeah, there's already a lot of mileage on those
That's
legs.
right.
One thing that I can definitely say, I think I'm speaking for all of us on this too, is the fact that regardless, I think that we could plug and play pretty much anybody in the top
Yes.
5 at any position for the running backs that
Yeah.
we talked about.
Yeah.
Every single one of these guys. I think this is probably one of the hardest lists to break down with the true argument and have somebody that's not going to have an objection to who you put where.
So if we had
it's tough.
if we had consensus, let's do our consensus at the end. Who would be our 3 top that we all agree on?
Barry
Barry
Brown.
Sanders
Barry Sanders,
Jim Brown, and Walter Payton.
yeah, I agree.
on those 3. So your Emmett's not in our top 3 consensus. Are you
Well, no,
okay?
I take that back. I'm sorry. You're right. I wasn't listening.
Okay.
Emmitt Smith, Jim Brown, and Barry Sanders.
So it sounds like Barry Sanders, Jim Brown,
Is the
the
consistency.
man
and Walter Payton for me. Top 3. What's your top 3?
That's my top 3.
Okay, top 3 the same.
Walter Payton, Jim Brown, Barry Sanders. Yeah.
Okay, it looks like that could be our consensus with the outlier being Emmitt Smith. Thanks for joining us. We're Sticks and Picks Podcast.
Join us next week when our topic will be best Heisman Trophy winners of all time.
We want to thank the fellas and the family at Habana House for allowing us to shoot here, and thank you for viewing and helping us to bring this to you guys.
And if you ever get a chance to come up to Habana House, make sure to check out this Arturo Fuente. It's a more mild to medium-bodied, Good Morning Stick Connecticut wrapper. Excellent choice, and I think it's actually like sub $7 price point, so pretty good. Check it out.
We're Sticks and Picks.